Right, so it's time to cross the line. I don't know if I'm ready to. Yes, the fine people over in the upper tier of my Patreon, you can see them on screen now, they're to blame for this. They've selected the subject of Very Weird Wrestling Episode 3, and it's, Victory Road 2009. Yay, It's a pay-per-view commonly considered to be one of the worst of all time. Hooray! TNA is one of the most fascinating promotions in all of wrestling history. On one hand, it's been the home of some of the unironically greatest things in wrestling in the 21st century. The X Division, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, the Motor City Machine Guns, Beer Money, actual good women's wrestling, long before WWE ever took their own women's division seriously at all. Monty Brown's another example of a great thing in TNA. Just Monty Brown in general. He might be the greatest of all, actually. It's also been the home of some of the very worst things in wrestling this century, and I can't begin to even start listing them all here because that list would just go on and on and on and on and on. And despite that, TNA has still survived and is somehow still going strong today. Is it just a puppet of WWE these days? No. Why would you even suggest that? So I guess to celebrate TNA still being a thing and still existing for so long, and hopefully we'll be able to see some of the examples of the good stuff I talked about, and just to celebrate all of TNA in its entirety, I guess, here is Victory Road 2009. It's July 2009 and we are in the goddamn Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. That's where the wrestling lives. Kurt Angle is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. His villainous stable, the Main Event Mafia, have been running wild for almost a year by this point. And oh yes, Vince Russo is in the writer's room. Let's strap in. Also, all the good stuff I just said about TNA, like the X Division, yeah, there's no X Division title match on this show. This show is quite heavily based around the Main Event Mafia, so, you know, you better get used to it, nerds. Just a bit of background on the Mafia before we dive in. The Main Event Mafia was formed in October 2008 by the 4 OG members, Sting, Kurt Angle, Booker T, and Kevin Nash, quickly followed by Scott Steiner. Now they have an even greater chance of win. And win they certainly did, with Sting winning the World Heavyweight Championship and Booker T just inventing his own belt, the Legends Championship. They ran the roost for quite some time. Now they were opposed by a fighting ragtag group of good old baby faces known as the TNA Frontline, and they were not very effective, being consistently outsmarted by the Mafia on most occasions. In fact, it was often down to loose allies or associates of the TNA Frontline to actually land a blow in the battle against the Mafia. Fresh, new, exciting talent such as Jeff Jarrett and Storyline Company co-owner Mick Foley. In fact, it was Foley himself who ended Sting's reign as TNA World Heavyweight Champion, defeating him at Lockdown 2009 in a main event with a combined age of 93. Wow, a combined age of 93. You might be wondering, was that like a triple threat or a fatal four-way or something? No, just a singles match. Just Sting versus Foley. This all led to the pay-per-view before the one we're talking about in this video, which was Slammiversary 2009, where a big storyline shift happened and we saw Samoa Joe, perhaps the only actually dangerous and threatening member of the TNA Frontline, turning heel, aligning with the Mafia and screwing Mick out of the title, handing it to Kurt Angle. Now, because the heels were quite routinely beating the babyfaces at this point, it was often the heels themselves who were their own worst enemy, with a power struggle going on for leadership of the Main Event Mafia between Angle and Sting. And Angle finally won that power struggle in the aftermath of Slammiversary, kicking Sting out of the group with the help of new best friend Samoa Joe. So that's where we find ourselves. Kurt has assumed total control of the top heel stable in the company. Samoa Joe is the new dangerous addition to the group as well. He'll be taking on a now babyface Sting at this event, and Angle will be defending his title against not Foley again. Have a rest, Mick. Also, AJ Styles is now the Legends Champion, beating Booker T for the belt in a rare victory for the Frontline over the Main Event Mafia. I'm sure that he'll still be champion by the end of this event because his opponent is... oh no. Right, with all the background out of the way, it's on with the show. Impact Zone time. Mike Tenay and Don West are on the call. I have no issues there. I like Tenay and Don West. They were a classic commentary team. The first match is Tara, formerly known of course in WWE as Victoria, defending the Knockouts or Women's Championship against Angelina Love, the leader of the Beautiful People. Tara is spooky and cool, she always has been. She's just a few months into her TNA run at this point, having left WWE not long before, and she's already become Knockouts champion. How did she get such a quick title shot? She did so by baiting Angelina Love into putting her title on the line by threatening to put her pet spider on Angelina's friend Velvet Sky, and Angelina was like, oh, you can't be putting a spider on my friend. Let's have a title match, I guess. And then she lost the belt to Tara in such a way. Yeah, Tara's really into spiders. That's that's an important detail here. Note that down. I'm watching. Angelina agreed, lost the title to Tara, and this is their rematch. Easy enough to understand, right? Easier than all the main event mafia stuff, right? Don't you worry. They'll be back soon enough in this throughout this video. Just a side note on Angelina Love, she's in the Beautiful People stable as mentioned. The other two members are Velvet Sky and Madison Rayne. They're classic heel mean girl bullies, and they don't like spiders at all. In fact, their catchphrase is spiders, spiders, no, no, no. Spiders, spiders, no. No, they don't say that. The match begins and Tara is just powering Angelina around. It's a total mismatch. Tara gets the tarantula submission applied because, oh, spiders. Then she has to let it go before the ref's count of 5 because obviously it's in the ropes, it's not allowed. Tara spills to the outside, just decks the other two members of the Beautiful People for no reason, honestly. Seriously, they've not even done anything yet. In fact, I think one of them was maybe meant to break the submission hold or something from the outside, because even on commentary, Don West is like, they've not even done anything. And Tanae's like, that's what you call a preemptive strike, Don. They're doing quite a good job of making it make sense. And that's all pro wrestling is. Anyway, Angelina takes advantage of Tara distracting herself on the outside and takes control of the match with a baseball slide. She rams her into the apron, she gets back inside, rams Tara into a corner of the ring, a big double clothesline, and both women are down. Sleepy time. It's time for Tara to make her comeback though. Right hand, flapjack, standing moonsault, only gets 2, and now it's time for Angelina's henchwomen to actually interfere this time. Velvet gets on the apron and tries to spray hairspray into the champion's eyes, but Tara moves and Angelina takes the hairspray instead. Oh no, your face is gonna look totally styled and awesome for between 24 and 48 hours. With her opponent blinded, Tara grabs a quick roll-up, but the referee is distracted, shouting at the heels through the ropes and telling them to get out of this impact. This is my impact zone. So there's no pinfall attempt. Tara's like, it's all right, I'm going to finish this match off in a different way. She heads up for a moonsault, goes for it, and Angelina rolls out. Well, Tara overshoots it massively, and Angelina would have been safe even if she hadn't moved. But I like Tara and think she's cool, so I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. Oh, I'm biased on this series. Don't worry about that. And that is the finishing move of the match. I'm not kidding. Angelina crawls over, makes the pinfall attempt. Tara gets one of her boots on the bottom rope, and the ref counts to 3 anyway. Shenanigans, perhaps. Angelina wins the title back, and it's a big crowd-popping, screwy heel finish to kick off the show, just as it's drawn up in the big book of excellent wrestling booking. That's a real book. It's not. Not that much wrong with the match. I just wonder why they put it first. It's a bit of an odd choice. It's almost like there's nothing else on this show that was really a good enough candidate to go first either. This is a bad pay-per-view. Tara's not happy. She kicks referee Slick Johnson, hits her finisher on Angelina, and takes her pet spider out of its glass cage and puts it on the referee's chest. Now I get it. As a post-match angle, I get it. Spiders are scary. I'm not brave. I wouldn't want a tarantula crawling all over me. But visually, it's not quite Jake the Snake Roberts, is it? And I think a big reason why it's not very effective is because the segment doesn't end for some reason. So instead of just cutting to the next thing in the back, we have to then watch Tara gently and quite kindly retrieve the spider from Slick Johnson's chest and pose with it in the middle of the ring. And also, she doesn't even really seem sad or angry about losing the title. She's more concerned with still trying to look cool and pose while the spider's trying to get away, and she's very expertly, to be fair, moving her hands around and her arms to keep posing while keeping the spider on her body. It's actually really good wrestling. And fair play to the spider as well. Takes 2 to tango, and the spider was always working the hard cam. Angelina would go on to lose the Knockouts title to ODB, who would then feud with Tara over the belt, and the women's division would just roll on. Quite inoffensive stuff for a pro wrestling women's division in the 2000s, right? Nothing that bad happened really, I suppose. and everything's going to carry on and new storylines. Yeah, this is not the only women's match on this show. Get ready. Backstage we go, where Jeremy Borash is interviewing the main event Mafia. They must have gotten bored of doing that. Kurt Angle is very confident heading into his match with Mick Foley and warns us, the audience, that we are not going to see a quality pay-per-view main event from him tonight. Thanks, Kurt. Nice one, mate. Thanks for the heads up. But Angle goes one stage further, threatening the rest of the guys that if they don't achieve a clean sweep of victories tonight, he'll fire them all from the main event Mafia. Whoa. So that means that, assuming they don't win all of their matches, which they surely won't, that means tonight could be the end of the main event Mafia as we know it, this dominant faction for most of the previous year, especially so soon after they got in a new member, Samoa Joe. I can't wait to see what happens after that. Match number 2 now. Christopher Daniels, TNA legend Christopher Daniels, of course, taking on the Blueprint, Matt Morgan. The story here is that Matt Morgan is an absolute physical freak and wrecking machine, 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, an absolute intimidating monster, and he really, really wants to join the main event Mafia. Let me in your gang, guys. Can I be your friend? He was actually given a chance, that's his whole character right now, by the way. He wants to be in the group. He was given a chance to join the group at the last pay-per-view Slammiversary, but lost a match to Sting. But now Sting's out of the group, he's got another chance to maybe impress the guys by defeating Christopher Daniels tonight, if he can. The match begins, and the announce team let us know that Morgan injured Daniels' leg in the build-up, so we'll see if that comes into play. It does, really, yeah, quite a lot. Match begins. Morgan launches Daniels to the outside hard. Daniels takes a huge impressive bump to the outside. Morgan follows him out there and just starts beating him down, and immediately I'm like, oh, the entire purpose of this match is to make Matt Morgan look good. And Daniels does just that, to be fair to him. He's an absolute pro. He helps make Matt Morgan, who already looks very impressive, look even scarier, throwing himself around to the extent that I almost think he's being paid relative to his amount of bumping and selling, or as I call it, the Ziggler bonus. Daniels fights back and hits a nice dive to the outside where Morgan tries to whip him into the apron, but Daniels hops up and hits a nice springboard moonsault off the ropes. Very good. Christopher Daniels is good. I'm not breaking any new ground here. But Morgan gets back on top and starts working Daniels' leg, also at one point slamming it into the ring post, and now Daniels is selling the leg hard. Few more dollars for that Ziggler bonus though, so don't feel too sorry for him. Morgan starts running through his big power-based offense, but Daniels reverses one of these moves into a nice DDT and goes up for the best moonsault ever, but as he jumps onto the turnbuckle, his bad leg gives out and he collapses down to the canvas. And this reminded me of something quite recently, at least within the past year or so, maybe 2 years? No, year or so in AEW. I'm sure Daniels did this and leapt up to the middle rope and then looked so convincingly like he'd botched the move, and no one was really certain whether he'd botched it or not. I guess when you're as good and have been doing it for as long as Christopher Daniels, often you get given the benefit of the doubt. Or you're just really good and did it on purpose. I don't know. Regardless, Morgan takes advantage, hits his finish, the Hellevator, and wins the match. That crowd sounds like a thought bubble for Matt Morgan, isn't it? Anyway, it's a big win, as cheap as it is with the legwork and everything, the pre-match injury. It's a big win for Morgan over a bigger name in TNA. Surely we'll see him in the main event Mafia soon. I can't wait to see it. More on that later. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever seen or anything. I thought the pre-match injury kind of telegraphed the result, but it wasn't, again, like the opener, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. There was nothing offensive here. There was nothing that bad. Why is this pay-per-view regarded as one of the worst of all time again? Oh, we'll get there. Right, next up, it's time for the spooky feud of the show. It's backstage WWE producer Abyss taking on professional YouTuber Dr. Stevie Richards. Having already enjoyed a successful wrestling career both in ECW as Stevie Richards of the Blue World Order, then in WWF as Steven Richards of Right to Censor, and then as Stevie Richards again, our boy then joined TNA, debuting as the therapist of the masked monster Abyss. Now, it's clear from the off that Dr. Stevie has been a very villainous, corrupt therapist, a bad influence on Abyss, who finally snapped and turned on him in May before teaming with fellow babyface Taylor Wilde to defeat Stevie's underlings Daphne and goddamn Raven at Slammiversary. Then Raven would disappear from the storyline for a bit. He'd come back later, but like long after the events of this video. I was hoping to see Raven. There's no Raven. There's no Raven. Quote the Raven. He's not here. Now, Stevie's villainous behaviour has only worsened since that loss at Slammiversary. Now he's at one stage even kidnapped Abyss's girlfriend Lauren and shocked Abyss with an electric taser. Lauren, by the way, in real life has since escaped the wrestling industry and become a golf host, a golf broadcaster on TV. Good, genuinely good for her. You've made it out. Well done, Lauren. Borash is interviewing Stevie and Daphne in the back, and here Dr. Stevie makes what I think we can all agree is a terrible decision, adding a no DQ stipulation to his match with, you know, a big bad Abyss. Borash quite rightly asks, "What on earth are you thinking, Stevie?" And Stevie replies that he's still very confident. He knows that Abyss is bigger than him and stronger than him, but the mind is more important than the body, and Dr. Stevie owns Abyss's mind. Ooh. Why did I make that noise? Stevie goes to leave to go out for the match, and before he does, Daphne says, "Dr. Stevie, I love you." And Stevie looks back at her and goes, "I know," and walks off. And it's so campy and cheesy, and I kind of love it though. Have I lost my mind? Also, Dr. Stevie, and I mean this in the most complimentary way possible, is really, really good at being creepy. Anyway, straight to the match. Stevie gives Abyss the runaround at the start before attacking him with a baton, or a baton, as Americans would call it, hidden in his wrestling boot. It really doesn't work for very long, however, as Abyss fights back, beats Stevie into the crowd, into the TNA galaxy, beats him down there, beats him out of the galaxy, back to ringside, beats him down some more. Dr. Stevie, by this point, is busted wide open. Back inside, Abyss whips Stevie head first into a chair in the corner before hitting the shock treatment, which is a move that looks like it absolutely sucks to take. Then he makes the cover. 1, 2, no. Abyss breaks his own pinfall attempt to dish out some more punishment. Martinez. Daphne runs out now with a taser to help Dr. Stevie. She gets on the apron, but wait, before we've even had a chance to register that, right, remember the run-in at the end of WrestleMania 8, Papa Shango, aka the latest run-in of all time. This is the opposite of that. The camera has barely located Daphne on the apron when suddenly we're cutting straight to the ramp again, because here comes Golf Lauren down to save the day. Golf Lauren right on time. Tea time. Golf tea. Not tea time as in... Lauren pulls Daphne off the apron, goes to fight her, but can't really fight her because Golf Lauren is just an NPC. Luckily, she manages to duck a big right hand from Daphne, shove her into the ring steps, and run away. Pretty good effort for a bloody NPC, right? Lauren. But Dr. Stevie's managed to get his hands on that taser and runs with it at Abyss, who immediately counters it into a big black hole slam, grabs the taser and jams it into Stevie's chest. We get comedy selling from Stevie, smoky special effects. They've gone all out here, sort of. It looks silly, but I can't complain too much because that's the vibe of this whole feud. That's the end of the match. Abyss makes the cover, 1, 2, 3, and he wins. The evil Dr. Stevie has been vanquished. It's one of the more, I don't know how to say this, but one of the more polite hardcore matches I've ever seen in my life, because it exists in this weird nether region, this weird part of time between the all-out anarchy of the late 90s and early 2000s, and then the big, grand, choreographed set-piece stuff of the more modern age. I mean, it's fine. It's passable. It's perfectly serviceable hardcore wrestling. I'd so far deem Victory Road 2009 to be not one of the weirdest pay-per-views. Why did I say it like that? I would deem Victory Road 2009 to be one of the not weirdest pay-per-views, but just kind of underwhelming. It's just kind of there. I'm sorry for just before when my body tried to leave through the rest of my mouth, I need to focus up. But this would not be the end of the feud, which on one hand, good, I guess, because there could possibly be a grander finale than just bzz, smoky. But at the same time, it did then drag on a bit. The feud lasted until the end of the year. It involved Stevie at one point putting a $50,000 bounty on Abyss's head, which was claimed by Kevin Nash, who beat him in a match. Calm down, Kevin. It's not real money, it's just kayfabe. Then we'd get a heel turn by Abyss's friend Mick Foley, who would align with Dr. Stevie, but surprise, it was a fake heel turn. Mick would turn face again, realign with Abyss, and beat Stevie and Raven in a big tag team match, and the babyfaces would win it. It's all happy again now. Was all of it worth it? I'm not certain, but it was certainly better than what Abyss would end up doing for his next storyline after this. If you haven't seen it right, Hulk Hogan joined the company and gave Abyss his Hall of Fame ring, which had special powers and made Abyss as strong as Hulk Hogan. That's a real storyline that they did. Backstage again we go, where it's Mick Foley, who's giving a pep talk to some members of the TNA frontline. They never did that with their hands. I don't know why I'm doing that. It's Beer Money and AJ Styles. Foley kind of waffles a bit, but because Foley's so kind of genuinely charming and easygoing when he's not one of his mad personas, it comes across quite well. He kind of reminds me of Kevin Smith whenever he's mid-story about Prince or Star Wars or something. Anyway, Foley tells the guys, please win your matches against the main event Mafia tonight, otherwise I'll be left as the sole defender of TNA's honor in the main event against Kurt Angle. And I'm thinking, oh god, yeah, that would be quite difficult for Mick. I hope that doesn't happen. Again, I'm not going to spoil what... Let's just move on. Next up, the IWGP Tag Team titles are on the line. That's New Japan's tag belts, because TNA had a working relationship with New Japan at this time. It's the babyfaces Team 3D, get up, drop the bombshell. That's not really how it goes. Versus the heel team of the British Invasion. Boo. They've got Rob Terry in their corner, who is simply the largest man who ever lived. Team 3D were double champions before this, holding the New Japan and the TNA sets of the tag team titles, but they lost the TNA ones to Beer Money thanks to interference from the British Invasion, hence this match being set up. The teams come out, Brother Ray gets the Stars and Stripes, like the Star Spangled Banner, and poses with it, and it's the wrong way around. Way, Botchamania, come on. Matthew, if you're hiring. There's some grappling early on between Devon and Doug Williams until Doug gets behind Devon, slaps him in the back of the head. Devon gets annoyed and goes, have that, and just lamps him. Doug tags out to Magnus. Devon also deals with him quite easily, and then Bubba comes in and he's dealing with everything easily, even gets a taunt steal in there, and I'm like, these British lads are rubbish. USA, US, bleh. Finally, the heel challengers get control of the match a little bit. For about 20 seconds, then the Dudleys get control again, set up for the weather, but Rob Terry shoves Devon off the top. Now we get a bit of a heat segment, complete with a VBH, or Very British Handshake. Then Magnus distracts the referee, allowing, in theory, Rob Terry to interfere from the outside once again. And Rob Terry stood there, and he looks away, and he still stood there. And then Doug Williams says something to him from the apron, and then he gets involved. It's too late. The spot's gone. Your window has passed, Rob Terry. I'm so sorry. Devon gets the hot tag and runs wild for a bit, then tags Bubba back in, and he hits a rock bottom for 2. Okay. The weather connects, and then Bubba calls for the tables. Devon goes to get the table. Bubba is so excited that he does the... I don't like when he does this. He leads the crowd in a chant of tables, tables. Just get the table. It's much more badass if Devon just gets the tables. You don't need... it's a bit kid's birthday party for me. The referee's obviously like, well, this is not a hardcore match. I'm going to get this table out of here, actually, lads. But as he turns away, Rob Terry tries to interfere once again, but he accidentally clotheslines Doug Williams. Typical Welshman. Sorry to the Welsh. From there, the 3D connects and the champions retain. But it's not over yet because, who's this? Why, it's former WWE superstar Shawn Daivari, now known as Sheikh Abdul Bashir, and his friend, former All Japan lower mid-carder Kiyoshi. Oh boy! They try and attack Team 3D. Team 3D beat them up as well, and they put Bashir through a table. That's the end of yep. But there is a point to this, because shortly after this pay-per-view, we would see the formation of a new stable featuring the Brits and Kiyoshi and Sheikh Abdul Bashir all together with some extras as the World Elite led by Eric Young. Because we've already got one very dominant, arguably overly dominant heel stable in the promotion, so what we need is like a less famous and weaker heel stable in the promotion as well. That's booking. Well, I say weaker, but hold on to that thought, because later on towards the end of this video, we'll learn what the World Elite got up to. And it's not what I was expecting. Also, separately, the British Invasion would get a rematch and actually beat the Dudleys to become IWGP Tag Team Champions. The reason I'm bringing this up is because of what it led to. I'm not making this up. Apparently, this title change led to a bit of tension between TNA and New Japan because New Japan were unaware of this planned title change. Yes, I'm sure that's the worst thing TNA did to annoy New Japan. It's not like they dressed up one of their future all-time greats as the world's goofiest, happiest little burglar now, is it? That was Kazuchika Okada. But yeah, the tag title situation, it's kind of like borrowing the Simpsons Road Rage from your friend to play on your PlayStation 2. But then your evil British other friend asks for a lend of it, so you lend them Simpsons Road Rage, and then you know that they're going to give it back to you before you have to give it back to your original friend. But imagine doing that on pay-per-view. They're probably going to find out about the Simpsons Road Rage. I don't know why I chose that one. It was a good game. Anyway, Team 3D won those belts back. Presumably it was okay. On to the next bit. To the back we go once again where, oh my God, it's Golf Lauren. She's an interviewer as well on the show. She's interviewing Slick Johnson, who of course oversaw the screwy finish of the opening match between Angelina Love and Tara. And two things to note. First of all, whoa, Slick Johnson is southern as hell. I did not know that. Secondly, he sincerely wants to apologize to Tara for not seeing the rope break. And he's going to go to Jim Cornette and demand a rematch, or recommend a rematch as soon as possible. Oh yeah, by the way, Jim Cornette's the authority figure, by the way. I've not really mentioned that because he doesn't last very much longer in TNA. He's not really relevant to any of these storylines. There are rumors that he just couldn't coexist with Vince Russo. And I believe those rumors. I say rumors, Cornette probably has said it himself. Right, the next match is heel versus heel. And not only that, it's Main Event Mafia affiliate versus Main Event Mafia affiliate. I also think this match is presumably the big reason that the majority of people on my Patreon voted for this show to be the topic of this episode, because this upcoming match is commonly cited as the worst match in the history of wrestling. Yes, it's the now infamous bout between Queen Sharmell and Jenna Maraska, the match that Brian Alvarez infamously gave, say it with me, -5 stars. Now, many of you will have seen this match, or at least heard of this match, or seen clips of it, or whatever. But do you know the storyline behind this match? Because it's bad. It's not as bad as the match itself, but it's still quite bad. So the story is that Sharmell is the first lady of the Main Event Mafia because she's Booker T's wife. Fair enough. But now Kurt Angle has brought in this reality TV star, Jenna Maraska. No, I apologize. Reality TV show winner, Jenna Maraska, into the group to be Kevin Nash's valet. Why? Because of that sweet Survivor winning money, baby. Yeah, Jenna has recently been revealed as the group's financial backer. The reason that they could bring Samoa Joe into the group is because they paid him off with some of Jenna's money. But now you'd think, oh, it's all good for the heels and that. No, Jenna just can't stop bloody bickering with Sharmell, can she? It's time to settle this in the ring. Oh no. But they're not doing this alone. Both women have been helped to prepare for this match by actual wrestlers. Sharmell has Sojo Bolt in her corner. Jenna has Awesome Kong in her corner. Do you know what would have been better? Yeah, Sojo Bolt versus Awesome Kong. That would have been more of a pay-per-view. Yeah. Everybody makes their entrances, and wouldn't you know it, Jenna Maraska has a special way of getting into the ring. It's kind of like Melina's, but less athletically impressive, and I will not be putting a screenshot of it in this video because I don't think YouTube would like it very much. The cameraman gets right in there. Oh yeah, Sharmell's wrestling in a sparkly dress, by the way. Bits of it keep falling off and landing around the ring. That's not the worst part of this match. If Sharmell wants to look fabulous when she's wrestling, more power to her. But right, here's the thing. You can tell this match is going to be a disaster from the off because, look, I'm not expecting Jenna Maraska to have the accumulative damage awareness selling ability of somebody like the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii, for example. But Sharmell gets on top of the match, lands a couple of blows, and Jenna, both times, just crumples lifelessly to the canvas. She's already ragdolled. She's out. Sharmell lands some worked stomps. It's the best part of the match. Legitimately, that's it. That's the best part of the match. Then she whips Jenna into the ropes. Jenna doesn't know how to run the ropes. And look, neither do I. I don't know how to run the ropes in a wrestling ring. I would not look good doing it. But I've never been paid to do it as part of a wrestling pay-per-view. Sharmell locks in a camel clutch. It's worth noting at this point that the referee is Earl Hebner. If there was any match in his career that Earl Hebner should have called early, it would have been this one, not, you know. Sharmell lets go of the camel clutch for no reason, because Jenna clearly doesn't know how to escape. Just keep the move on, Sharmell. You'll eventually win. What are you doing? Sorry, criticizing the psychology of this match is like watching The Room and criticizing the cinematography. Is the cinematography bad? Is that bad in The Room? It's probably bad too. I assume it's also not very good, but I haven't thought about it because of all the other more glaringly obvious, because of the acting in the room and the story, right? That's the point I'm making. Apologies to the room's cinematographer if you're like I'm so sorry. The match goes on and on. You notice at this stage kind of like a small commotion going on amongst the guys in the front row who are all sort of turning around talking to each other and not watching the match. It's as if they're like, can you believe what we're... Have you seen the state of this? Jenna hits a jawbreaker, which TNA pops for because it looks sort of okay, by which I mean like Sharmell sells it quite well. Then Jenna runs the ropes again. Sojo Bolt trips her from the outside, as if Sharmell needed any more help winning this match. Awesome Kong tries to get revenge, but this only distracts the referee, allowing Sojo and Sharmell to team up and start stomping the apparently lifeless body of Jenna Maraska on the cat. It's just two women just stomping this still woman. It's bad. It's rubbish. Sharmell slaps Jenna. She kind of misses. And that's the cue for Jenna to start Jenna-ing up. You'd have all seen the clip of this one. Jenna bursts out of the corner she's slapping her like this with repeated slaps to Sharmell. And you hear the crowd audibly groan when they see the state of these strikes, unfortunately. We get a big spear from Jenna. Then she assumes full mount and delivers more slaps from there, which look like that. And look at the crowd. This guy's turned round. We then get a comedy roll spot over the referee. Way two of the women rolling. Bloody hell, what's he like? The dirty dog? No, it was just an accident. What's he doing under there? Then Jenna tears out a clump of Sharmell's hair. Sharmell gets furious about this and charges at Jenna, who moves, and she knocks Sojo Bolt off the apron. Awesome Kong's meant to be on the outside to catch Sojo as she falls. And she does catch her, but it's like a platform game where she goes, wee, bonk, and then bonk again on the floor. It ends up looking quite nasty. Don't know who's to blame. It's just one of those unfortunate things. I think Sojo's okay. Jenna then gives the clump of Sharmell's hair to Awesome Kong, I guess as like a trophy, and Sharmell storms over to Awesome Kong and goes, give me my hair back, Awesome Kong. And Awesome Kong is not amused, knocks her out with a lightning fast, just a single blow. Sharmell's out. Jenna's been distracting Earl at this point, so he doesn't see it, and Jenna makes the slow, seductive pinfall and wins the match. Jenna celebrates with Awesome Kong. The crowd aren't like, boo, you evil villain, I can't believe it. They're more like, boo, that was trash. Jenna makes Kong lift her up on her shoulders, and Kong's walking around with Jenna up here, and then Jenna gets put down, and then she starts shouting at Awesome Kong for, well, from what I can tell, for no reason. I guess there's meant to be a reason, but commentary don't seem to have any idea. I just don't think Jenna conveys it very well. Then she slaps Kong, which obviously is a bad idea. Kong slams Jenna to the canvas by her hair, and Jenna immediately does the completely knocked out sell that she loves doing. Kong hits the ropes, big splash to Jenna. The crowd go, hooray! But again, I find it quite unconvincing because Jenna's gone from selling being completely knocked out to just selling being completely knocked out after being splashed. So she's there, big splash incoming, doosh, still down. It's bad. It's really bad wrestling. It's difficult though because I don't know what else to add. You know, it's one of those matches where everyone's seen it and everyone's tried to say something new about it, and it's hard now to find anything new to say about it because it is just awful wrestling. It is really bad. But for me, the blame isn't really with Jenna or Sharmell. It's with TNA. Why? It's with Dixie Carter. Why did they put this on? I mean, apparently Dixie's a big fan of reality TV, which explains why she got a Survivor winner to be on the show in some metric. But putting her in a match on pay-per-view is an absolutely mind-boggling decision. But here's my hot take, right? Guys, as I'll explain later on, and I will come back to this, don't worry, I don't think that this match is the key reason that this is such a bad pay-per-view. I will explain that later. I know that sounds crazy. I'll explain it later. Kevin Nash is interviewed in the back, and he's absolutely fine with Kurt Angle threatening to fire the rest of the Main Event Mafia if they don't sweep all of their matches tonight. He also buries the rivals of the Main Event Mafia, saying that whereas the Mafia are all top guys, the front line and all the baby faces, well, they're just in the same place they've been for a few years now, and they've never progressed up the card. And I'm like, all right, Kev, nice one for that, mate. Just absolutely. I mean, the golden rule of wrestling promos, right, is you don't bury your opponent too much, because if you end up beating them, well, you've beaten somebody that you've already told us is a loser, so it's not that impressive. Whereas if you build up your opponent, then you've beaten someone really impressive. I guess this maybe means that Kevin Nash is going to lose tonight, and then that's why he's burying his opponent, because they're going to win in the end, right? Right? In fact, Kev is so confident that he says if he loses his match tonight, he'll retire. Nice one, Kev. I don't know why I'm watching this. Nice way to sap all the suspense and intrigue out of your... I was quite cross when he said that, actually. I can tell I'm getting annoyed now. Or whoever's idea it was for him to say that. I don't know if it was Kev's idea himself. Anyway, his opponent tonight is AJ Styles. Quite an interesting matchup. Wrestling's ultimate worker versus wrestling's ultimate worker, if you know what I mean, brother. Because one is a really impressive mechanical worker in the ring, can do innovative, crazy things, and one is known as a bit of a carny backstage. It's not as funny if I explain it, it's crap. I need to remember this. That's my whole shtick. And this sort of difference is entirely what the match is built around. This is what the video package is all about. It's kind of Kev bragging about all the money he's made, and AJ even saying at one point, I'd do this for free. I just love wrestling so much. Get on the message boards, you big loser. No. The bout is for AJ's Legends title. Remember, of course, this was invented by Booker T and then won off him by Styles. So this is Kevin Nash trying to bring that belt back into the Main Event Mafia fold. It's gone by many names since then. The Legends title, the TV title, the King of the Mountain title, the Global title. And even though its lineage has now officially ended, it sort of spiritually still lives on in the current TNA International title. Basically, it fills the role of TNA's secondary men's title floating around somewhere beneath the world title. But really I should be saying tertiary title, because the X Division belt should be the secondary title in TNA, as it has been some of the time in the company's history. Unfortunately, at this time, in this time period we're talking about, the X Division title seems to have been deliberately diminished in terms of importance, with the champion not even making an appearance, not even getting a mention on this show. I'm not even sure I can say the champion's ring name on YouTube. It's a legal term for doing something very bad, very, very bad. He used to be a Ring of Honor World Champion. Teamed with Hernandez sometimes. And Hernandez. And Hernandez. It's this guy. Anyway, here we go. Get ready to fly! I've got an upstairs neighbour. And I've met him, he's nice. He's going to think I'm a loser. The story of the early stages of this match is that Nash is big and strong, but quite slow, certainly compared to AJ, who's just too quick and nimble. He goes crazy when he hears a cymbal or a hi-hat with a souped up tempo. So Nash bails to the outside and he has a little rest, he does. Finally, Nash catches AJ with some heavy strikes and starts to dominate. AJ hops up to the second rope, but Nash boots him all the way down to the outside. AJ takes a great looking bump. AJ gets out of a jackknife powerbomb attempt and regains control of the match by just punching Nash repeatedly in the face, then getting on top and just punching him a lot more times in the face. I'm like, what am I watching? Triple H versus Randy Orton. AJ works the legs for a bit, which is sensible because, you know, it's Kevin Nash. Then starts to land some of his signature offense. Phenomenal forearm. Pele kick. AJ's going to win, you guys. Oh. He sets up for another springboard move on the apron, goes for it. Nash shoves the referee closer to AJ, who leaps over the top of the ref straight into the grasp of Kevin, who drops him with a chokeslam. 1, 2, 3, that's it. So Nash is the new Legends champion, he doesn't have to retire, and the Main Event Mafia's sweep is still very much on. This result plunged me into a bit of an existential crisis, maybe even more than Jenna versus Sharmell. I'll explain. So Nash beats AJ here, right? What then? What even is the point of the Main Event Mafia? Because beyond their initial formation and period of dominance, which we've had by Victory Road 2009, what is their point after that? Surely it's to build up a group of opposing babyfaces, ultimately lose to them, and kind of pass the torch to these newer stars, right? It's mad how often this happens in wrestling, and it's mad how often the heel group never really puts over the babyfaces actually in the end at all. It's almost like these older guys, it's almost like they don't want to give up their spot or anything, you know? Okay, spoiler for events kind of immediately after this one. AJ would indeed end up rising up the card once again and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. However, I don't really think the booking painted him as the ultimate vanquisher of the main event mafia that it really should have been doing. Golf Lauren's in the back again. This time she's in the women's locker room, standing perfectly framed by the entrance to the shower area. Oh God, what's going to happen? She accidentally catches referee Slick Johnson leaving the shower. And I noticed that not only is he incredibly southern, as I mentioned earlier, but also he's jacked. Honestly, if this was the early 90s, he'd be losing at WrestleMania to The Undertaker in a casket match as part of the undefeated streak. I swear he would get a payday there. Slick claims that he was getting his spatter bat looked at in the shower room, which is wrong. It's a lie. Slick leaves and we see the real reason he was in the shower. Madison Rayne. She is, of course, a member of the Beautiful People, as we've seen. She was possibly responsible for Slick helping Angelina Love win, even though she didn't win that match in the opener. Interesting. Madison threatens Golf Lauren and says, you better keep your mouth shut. Don't tell anybody about this, which I find ridiculous because she's being broadcast. She's on pay-per-view, as we know. And she also leans into the microphone to say it, just so that everybody can make sure everybody heard. Right, back to the action. It's time for Booker T and Scott Steiner to take on the tag team champions Beer Money, James Storm and Robert Roode. Sometimes Bobby Roode, at this stage I believe simply Robert Roode. The story here is that Mick Foley gave Booker and Steiner, these heels, a shot at the tag team titles in exchange for his own world title shot against Kurt Angle. Mick, I'm not so certain about that strategy, Mick. Booker and Scott are confident because individually they were both part of two of the greatest tag teams of all time. Not with each other, but it still must count for something, right? Whereas Beer Money are confident because they're one of the greatest tag teams around today. Fair enough. Let's see what happens. Now the heels entrance is amazing because Booker decides to just two-footed kind of bunny hop all the way down the ramp, miles ahead of Steiner, who's walking very slowly down there. Booker gets in the ring, it's all about him, stands on the turnbuckle, big spotlight on Booker, he's posing, he looks great. Steiner's just still getting in the ring in the background. It's time for Steiner to pose now. No, it's time for the babyface's music to hit, and now they come out. Scott took too long. The babyface entrance is fun as well because James Storm feeds a fan in the front row some of his beer. Don't drink that, mate. You literally don't know what's in it. I'm sorry to be a sensible Susan. Come on, think it through. Also, Earl Hebner, refereeing legend and all that, I understand, but mate, sort out your tag title brandishing technique, please. The state of that. We get the early stages of the match. I expect Booker to be doing like the majority of the work, but fair play to Scott Steiner, who holds up his end of the bargain as well, and James Storm then takes control. It's worth mentioning that Beer Money at this point are quite over with the crowd. They're cheering them quite a lot, so they should be winning here, right? The action all breaks down, the faces clear the ring, and then they do their taunt in the middle of the ring, which is they go, oh, then one of them goes, beer, and one of them goes, money, and the crowd will do it with them, and sometimes wrestling's easy. But the heels retake control of the match shortly afterwards, and Storm is getting beaten down in the ring, and he is selling for these heels. At one point, he takes an overhead belly-to-belly from Steiner, and sells it by nearly falling out the ring. So fair play to James Storm here. He is earning his money. The Mafia land a kind of a variation on the Hart Foundation's Heart Attack finisher, but with Booker landing a big high kick rather than a leaping clothesline. Fair play to Booker. It looks great. And also he in general looks great in this match. So athletic still, even at this stage of his career. Roode gets the hot tag and takes control of the match and seems to be building up a bit of a head of steam, and it looks like these popular cowboys, right, are going to actually win, and the main event Mafia are actually going to lose a match. That's what it looks like, and then shenanigans ensue. First of all, and this annoyed me straight away, they do a spot that they don't even need to do because they're winning the match, but Storm gets on the apron with a mouthful of beer and spits it in Scott Steiner's face while Roode has the referee distracted. Earl then wanders kinda close to Steiner's flailing arm and acts like he's been blinded, but he definitely doesn't touch him. Then I think Earl decides to instead try to sell as though he got beer in his eyes, which he definitely didn't because he was facing literally away from the spit when it happened. And then we get Earl Hebner on his knees, facing the hard cam, trying to pull his referee shirt up to wipe this imaginary beer from his eyes, but the shirt's a little bit too tight for him to get, so he's just there going, it's bad. So yeah, everything is going down. Earl's going, I cannot see, man. And it feels like this is going to be the finish, but it's actually not. It gets worse. The champions hit their double team finish on Scott Steiner. Earl is still blinded somehow and can't yet make the cover. Booker T and James Storm end up brawling on the outside of the ring. Earl makes the count. 1, 2. Booker T pulls him out of the ring. On the outside, Booker T tells Earl Hebner that it was actually James Storm who pulled him out of the ring, and Earl just instantly believes him. Why would you believe Booker T? It doesn't matter about who's the face, who's the heel. Why would James Storm deliberately break his own partner's pin? I need to calm down. While Earl is arguing with James Storm on the outside, Booker T on the apron hits a very impressive axe kick on Robert Roode as he's leaning over the top rope. Fair play. Roode falls backwards into a roll-up from Scott Steiner, and then Storm and Earl are still arguing on the outside of the ring. They see the pinfall attempt happen at the same time. James Storm, the younger wrestling athlete, starts to get into the ring. Earl starts to get into the ring. James Storm has to deliberately slow himself down. Earl gets into the ring ahead of him, counts the 3, and that is how this wrestling match ends. Booker and Steiner are the new tag team champions. They get a ringside interview with Jeremy Borash on their way out, and they shout incomprehensibly through it, and they're having a great time. Steiner is so excited that he says they're the brand new tag team champions, and then he turns to give Booker a high five, right? But no, Booker goes to give Steiner a high five. Scott is stood there though, holding the belt with both hands. Booker, they can't high five, so they just stare at each other for a bit. Then Steiner remembers that he's missed a line from his promo, turns back, finds Borash, gets on the mic again and says, "Mick Foley, one more match left to go for the Mafia. Kurt Angle's going to take you down." Watch it. That's how he says it. He says, "Take you down." And he's wrong, because there's 2 matches left. But both involving, Joe's got a match. They're both Mafia matches. But Kurt Angle's going to take Mick Foley down. So where do I begin with this? Why did Beer Money do the beer spot when they were already winning the match? Why did Earl Hebner pretend to be blinded when he literally wasn't? Why on earth did he believe Booker T when he said that James Storm broke the pinfall in the ring, even though James Storm was going to be breaking the pinfall of his own tag team partner Bobby Roode in the ring, and it wouldn't have made any sense at all? And why is Earl Hebner faster than professional wrestler James Storm at getting into a wrestling ring? Right, thank God that's over. Now on to what's next. Yep. So this version of Samoa Joe isn't the Samoa Joe, the very cool Samoa Joe that we all know and love, who's been cool at various stages. Most of his career he's been a really cool wrestler. This is the uncool version of Joe with the hammy threats and the tattoo, the face paint that everyone made fun of. It's Nation of Violence Samoa Joe. For like the entirety of 2009, Samoa Joe has been the TNA Frontlines main threat against the evil main event Mafia, which has all been for nothing because, as we now know, Joe betrayed the babyfaces and joined the Mafia just at the last pay-per-view Slammiversary. Now at this event, he is facing Sting, the man who he helped kick out of the Mafia between Slammiversary and this very pay-per-view. So that makes sense. As much as I don't like the storyline, it makes sense for now. Golfy Lolfy interviews Joe, and she brings up a mysterious advisor that he's been talking about recently in his promos. Joe says, yes, the world will learn who my mentor is tonight. And he's very confident. He dedicates his impending victory to this mentor. And it's not very good. Like, the person it turns out to be, that person is good in wrestling history, but it's not very good in the context of it. It's not a good storyline. Straight to the match, Joe jumps Sting at the bell, brawls with him into the galaxy, lines Sting up against a wall of event posters, and then Sting ducks and Joe just full on punches the wall, which I do find quite visually funny. I'm a simple guy. Also, because the poster has the beautiful people on it, it looks like Joe just really hates Angelina Love, which after that travesty of a refereeing decision in the opener, fair play. Sting gets a fan to hold a lovely hand-drawn sign against a wall and then slams Joe into the sign. The sign says, in black marker pen, TNA, cross the line. Look closer. The fan has the marker pen in his hand still. Did he not just draw that at home and bring it in? Is this a plan? Please don't say this was a plan. The brawl finally gets back into the ring where Sting bites Joe because this is a bad-tempered feud. Then Joe knocks Sting to the outside, hits the ropes, and does his very lovely, always impressive, big diving elbow to the outside. Samoa Joe, despite this not being his best gimmick of all time, is still very good, of course. Joe dominates Sting for a while and hits him with so many right hands, the face paint's almost completely gone from Sting's face, but then Sting starts to no-sell these punches from Joe, and Sting starts to sting up. Like we saw Jenna up before. yeah. Sting runs wild and hits an enziguri, which I'm going to call the Stingziguri. Has that ever been done before? Because they didn't call it that on commentary. I think I've invented that, and I'm sad Sting's now retired because I would have loved for him to do it more, and I could take the credit. Sting heads up top, and look at this facial expression. He has what I'm going to call a full-on existential crisis. He's like, what am I doing here? I could have been a doctor or a lawyer. So he heads back down, doesn't hit anything off the top, instead hits a Stinger splash in the corner to Joe, locks in the Scorpion Deathlock. Sting's gonna win. New music plays, and it's time to meet Joe's mentor. Now this is a bit weird. So it's Taz, right? Sorry for the spoilers, but I've given that about as much shock value as Don West does on commentary, because he says, yep, that's right, Taz is here, Sting's in trouble now, like as if he knew all along. I don't know what's going on. Actually, maybe Don West undersold it slightly, because in just a few short months' time, Taz would have completely replaced him on commentary, so that's awkward. But yeah, this is weird for two reasons, and not Don West's reaction, which I don't actually think he undersold it deliberately. But reason number one, this is Taz's TNA debut, and he gets like, not no pop, but like a polite, but like, yay, it's Taz, you know? Secondly, Taz doesn't do anything. His presence just inspires Sting to break out of the Scorpion Deathlock and start kicking ass. And Sting sells the submission being broken. Crap, by the way. I had to rewind it several times because it looks like Sting just lets it go at first. It's all done quite badly. Sting continues to hit moves, but now Joe's kicking out at one. Except the first time the ref doesn't realise it's going to happen, so the ref counts two, even though the pinfall's clearly been broken by the time the 2 count should happen. Is everyone just messing up on this show? The good times roll on as Joe sets up Sting on the middle rope for the muscle buster, picks him up. Sting sandbags him. Sting, for whatever reason, don't know why, doesn't want to take the move, pulls his weight down. Joe puts him down on the canvas, goes for it again. Sting's like, no. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was hurt or something. Whatever the case, they have a few words. They're clearly talking to each other for a few seconds. Joe locks in the coquina clutch. And this is why I do have sympathy for Sting here. Sting taps out clean to the coquina clutch. He doesn't do the babyface thing of bravely passing out rather than submit. No, he puts Joe over strong. So that's why I don't think he was sandbagging it in the sense that he was politicking and trying to make Joe look bad in victory. I just don't know what happened. Before the main event, we get a brief video package plugging TNA's new big signing in the world of wrestling. Former WWE superstar Bobby Lashley, who would have quite a featured babyface run in the company before leaving them to concentrate fully on MMA. At least his second run with the company was a bit more substantial. Backstage we go again for another Mick Foley segment. Borash says, hey, the Mafia have done everything they said they would do. It's not looking good for you guys, really. Foley just agrees. He's like, yeah, it's not looking good, man. And I don't think I'm going to really match up that well against Kurt tonight. But then Foley gets all Mick Foley about this and gets all intense and says, Kurt's been injured for years. Everyone knows that, and I know how to inflict pain. I'm Mick Foley, damn it, and I'm going to win this match, and God help me, and, you know, I'm behind him. I'm like, go on, Mick, you can do this. I mean, you'd better do it, to be honest, because otherwise the story of this show is the Mafia said they were going to win all their matches, and then won all of their matches. But then again, is Foley coming out of the show having won the belt, and if he beats Kurt Angle, is that even good anyway? Because Foley was the champion before this show anyway. He was the one who held the belt heading into Slammiversary when Joe betrayed the babyface side and helped Kurt Angle win the title. That was Foley he won the belt from, Kurt. So would Angle losing the belt to Foley now not feel like a step back in the storyline anyway? Really, this is a lose-lose main event, in my opinion. But let's see what happens. Early on, Foley targets the neck of Angle. Kurt sells it quite unnervingly. It's quite convincing. Kurt Angle's good, newsflash. Foley then continues to target the neck. Then he targets the neck some more. And then he targets the neck some more. And I'm like, has Mick Foley just unearthed a genius new strategy in wrestling? Why did every one of Angle's opponents ever not just relentlessly target the neck? Everyone knows about his injured neck. Everybody talks about it all the time. Don't try and out-wrestle Kurt Angle. He's an Olympic gold medalist, famously an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. Foley goes for a pile driver on the outside. Good, yes, you'll win. You might really, really hurt a man, but you'll win the belt. Yay. Foley goes for this pile driver on the outside. Angle backdrops him out of it. Foley's legs crash into the ring steps and it looks nasty. Angle's in control now, gets the ankle lock applied, but then Foley rolls out of it, reversing it because he's clever and wise, I guess. Angle goes up top and goes for his insanely pretty moonsault. Literally the prettiest in wrestling history. It makes no sense because he's not even a high flyer. He's Kurt Angle. And Foley rolls out of the way. Mick hits the double arm DDT and uh-oh, Angle kicks out at 2. And you know what that means? It's time for Mr. Socko. Because Foley, you know what, man, Foley's good, to be fair. But Angle avoids the mandible claw by shoving Foley into the referee before hitting an Angle slam and getting a near fall of his own. Angle then rips a strategy straight from wrestling gaming, dropping an elbow on the referee so he can go to the outside and use a weapon while the ref's unconscious. It's never been that consistently applied in wrestling, has it? Is this a DQ? Is it not? I guess it just, whatever the storyline demands are, that's what the rule is. Kurt gets back in the ring with a chair, but is met with a mandible claw from Foley, who then shoves him to the outside and hits an elbow drop off the apron. Damn. Yeah, the booking's silly, the storyline makes no sense, I don't like it, but sometimes you just have to appreciate two good wrestlers doing the good wrestling. Even if Foley was way past his prime here, so far this has been the best thing on the show. Foley rolls Angle back into the ring, the ref's recovered by this point, but Angle kicks out at 2, and it's time for the finish, which is gritty and very realism based, and I wasn't expecting that, and it took me a lot by surprise. Feels like quite a heavily Kurt Angle suggested finish, I would have to guess, maybe quite MMA inspired as well. Of course, this would be prime The Ultimate Fighter sort of time, wouldn't it? 2009, I think, yeah. Mick applies a mandible claw from behind with the legs around, with the body scissors locked in as well, but Kurt fights out of it with his elbow and then flips round, jiu-jitsu, well, Olympic wrestling, I guess. So he's on top of Mick, and then it gets real gritty. We get a lot of stiff right hands from Kurt Angle, and then the ankle lock gets reapplied. Foley makes the ropes bravely. Angle breaks his own hold, kicks Mick's arm off the ropes. It looks brutal. Then he reapplies the ankle lock again, drags Mick away, grapevines the leg, and Angle wins the match. It's a big deal that Mick taps out, and commentary sell it appropriately too. I think they claim that it's like only the second time Foley has ever submitted. I don't know if that's true or not, but he certainly has the reputation as a wrestler who would never give up. But tonally, I find it quite strange. It's not the sort of thing I'd expect to see on TNA around this time, maybe in like Ring of Honor at this time, or turn of the century New Japan, but not on the same show where we've had finishers like Earl Hebner's been fooled by Booker T, a spider on Slick Johnson's chest, but he has been bribed by the lovely ladies. Here's a taser, bzz, Dr. Stevie, you know, and then Kurt Angle's like, no, I'm gonna. It's like immediately going from the Roger Moore era of James Bond with the comedy quips or the karate chops to the villains, and then straight to the Daniel Craig era with nothing in between, where he's just bashing some guy's head in against a sink. So that's just it then. The rest of the Mafia come out with their belts and stuff, and they all celebrate in the ring. They said they'd win all their matches, and they did win all... Oh, at least they don't hold all the available gold. Oh, what's that? Samoa Joe would win the X Division title about 3 weeks after this? Right. Well, at least they don't hold the Knockouts title then, I guess. And no, Jenna Maraska didn't demolish Angelina Love the next week on Impact or anything. But speaking of Jenna Maraska, here is my big hot take on the show as a whole. This show is mainly remembered for that match, isn't it? The worst match ever, the -5 stars and all the rest of it. This event would have still been a really bad one if Jenna versus Sharmell had never even existed. And I think that match has become a bit of a scapegoat for TNA around this time, and for this show specifically, Victory Road 2009. But it hides a bigger issue, and that issue is with the wider storytelling. As I said before, anyone with a brain should be able to tell that the ultimate purpose of the main event Mafia should have been to build up maybe some younger stars, certainly some popular babyface names, like AJ Styles, like Samoa Joe before he turned heel, and like maybe some lower card ones as well you can build up, and ultimately put them over when it's all said and done. Instead, Samoa Joe switched sides before this show had even happened, and then on the show, Kevin Nash beat AJ Styles, Booker T and Scott Steiner beat Beer Money, and the Mafia are the best. Yeah, they cheated sort of in slight ways, but not loads. It just makes the faces look bad. But hey, maybe this would all be worth it, right? Maybe some brave new faces would emerge and take down the Mafia once and for all. So now let's take a look at the end of the main event Mafia and what happened. Was it some blaze of glory at a major pay-per-view? So as I mentioned way back near the start of this video, the Mafia's biggest enemy was never the TNA frontline, it was themselves. And also the World Elite. Wait, what? Yeah, so Eric left the front line and formed the World Elite, who I mentioned before briefly, the British Invasion, Kiyoshi, Sheikh Abdul Bashir, all the lads together, we all hate America, that's their gimmick. Eric Young then beat Kevin Nash for the Legends title, and the British Invasion beat Booker T and Steiner for the tag titles. And the main event Mafia weren't losing to the TNA frontline, these popular babyfaces. They were losing to the less popular than themselves heel stable underneath them on the card. What? Meanwhile, new signing Bobby Lashley cost Samoa Joe the X Division title to Amazing Red. And in the main event scene, AJ Styles beat Kurt Angle for the World Heavyweight Championship, but because Sting let him. Right, I know that was a nice title change and all the crowds celebrate with AJ in the ring and it's a big happy moment, I know. But let's not get away from the fact that Sting let AJ do it. That was the real story. Not AJ Styles besting Kurt one-on-one as he should do, but beating him because Sting visually looks at him and basically says, yeah, go for it, kid, and leaves the ring. I've never liked that, and I know some people like that. I've never liked that. So what's Kurt going to do now that he's lost the belt? Who's he going to... His power's crumbling around him. How's he going to hold the Mafia together? And this is kind of where the Mafia ends. Kurt Angle goes on to face Matt Morgan, who never officially became a member of the main event Mafia. But Angle beat Matt Morgan, but respected him because of it, and shook his hand. And then Kurt turned face, saying, I was wrong about these youngsters on this roster. There's a lot of talent here, like Matt Morgan, who I've beaten. So the main event Mafia, in my opinion, wasn't really ended by Styles or Beer Money or any of the popular guys in TNA going over them strong. It was ended by a combination of these factors. A heel stable that nobody cared about yet, a recent WWE superstar in Bobby Lashley, Sting getting revenge on Kurt Angle, and then Angle beating Matt Morgan clean. And that, my friends, is the story of the main event Mafia, which brings to a close TNA Victory Road 2009. Justice for Jenna Maraska. Yes, it was a crap match, but this would have been a crap show without it anyway. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack the Jobber. If you want to vote on future episodes, do head over to the upper tier of my Patreon, patreon.com/Jack the Jobber. But there's a lower tier as well where you can hear podcasts, read articles that I've done and that sort of thing. And I kind of try to keep it updated fairly regularly too, so check it out. And that's pretty much it. Thank you once again for watching. Like, share and subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. And I'll see you very, very soon. I am a tired little boy.